Hello, everyone. Hello, it's Dionne Williams here, the creator of the Emerge Fashion Show and D. Williams PR Group. How are you today, everyone? I want to thank everyone for joining me. I hope everybody has been safe during this pandemic or quarantine. I know I've been trying to stay safe and working from home. I miss everybody. So I started the Emerge Design Talks talking to some of my favorite icons in the fashion industry while we have been quarantining. And today we've had Andre Leon Talley, we've had Oswald Boating, and today we have my favorite model and industry icon. She's been in the business for over 50 years and she's been a trailblazer, Miss Pat Cleveland. I'm going to put her on board.
Hello. Hello, it's a sunny day here.
And I'm happy.
Yes, welcome to my studio.
Oh, I love your studio. We'll talk about that at the end. But thank you so much for joining me today. I had mentioned to you before that Emerge has emerging designers and people in the industry, and I thought it was so important to talk to people, icons in the industry, so they can know history and know more about fashion. I'm very honored that you're on the show. You accepted the Fashion Innovator Award at my show Emerge several years ago, and designer Stephen Burrows presented the award. One of my best moments of the of the show history. So thank you. I wanted to start off because I don't know if people know that you started off as a designer, like wanting to be a designer before you became a model.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you got to be interested in things. And so when you're home and you're growing up and your mom and your auntie is sewing like crazy just so they can look good, like girls like to look, or whoever, they were making costumes at home. And of course, I fell in track with them. I mean, I had the feather boas since I was 3 years old. Of course, I was going to try to sew them together. And designing just came, naturally, because my mother's a painter, and I just picked it up. And my auntie was a dancer, and she used to go to Europe and come back with these costumes that she beaded herself for the opera, and she danced with Catherine Dunham and all that stuff on the Queen Mary, and she had a great time in clothes. So I thought clothes, I could not go out of the house without a new outfit. And thank God I knew how to sew, because clothes were expensive. So I would get a little piece of fabric, a little square, and sew it together, because I didn't have a shape at all. I looked like a, well, kind of beanpole. So I did the best I could. And where I didn't have any accessories female-wise, I put extra feathers, you know. So you figure out your style very young, and you sew it together. That's what you got to do sometimes if you want to get attention from the boys.
Right. So I read in your book, I did get your book a couple years ago. You had your own book called Walking with the Muses. I love this book.
Thank you.
And when early in those years, you were walking down the street and somebody from Vogue saw your clothes or you. And
I mean, the thing is, you know, like when you dress up with intention, you know, you dress up with the intention of, first of all, you want to be comfortable, dignified, and decent. Like, you know, I grew up going to church on Sunday. So you better get it together on Sunday. You better look good. So I had the Sunday attitude every day. So I make a dress in the evening when I came home from school, and then wear it to school the next day, because I just loved making clothes. So I had on one of those outfits that my mom and I threw together, because I didn't have much time sometimes between homework and sewing. So she helped me finish up an outfit for the next day. And it was a checker, houndstooth checker, black and white, with spats, and a little cappuccino to put on top of my ponytail, because I always wore this ponytail. And oh my God, I was with my girlfriend Frances, and we were walking through the subway, because we always took the bus, but there was a strike that day. And we were walking on 42nd Street down near the Gray Bar building, Grand Central Station, and this lady started following us. And my girlfriend said, "Oh, somebody's following us. We should run." But I looked back, and she looked really well dressed. And I said, "I'm not running. I want to see who this is." And I stopped, and all these people were like walking so fast, they bumped into me, and she caught up. She said, "Oh, thank you for stopping, because I was following you across town." And then she pulled out her card, and it said Vogue, and it was like, bling. I said, uh-oh. She said, "I want to write an article about you for my Vogue's own boutique." And she was actually a scout. She was an English lady. and she was the scout for Carrie Donovan. And
Oh,
Carrie Donovan was a big editor who discovered new people like, oh, she had Stephen Burrows. She worked with Joel Schumacher, the director. He was a film director later, but
yeah,
at the time he worked up at Vogue. So they were in cahoots in them. There was an illustrator named Manning Obregon who was there at the
yeah.
time, and he was Oriental. And he saw me and he said, I've got to have that girl. And so he used me for his illustrations. And somehow Mrs. Vreeland loved this guy because he was an illustrator. And he went
Nice.
with her to Europe all the time to do those sketches in the fashion shows. Because in those days, no cameras were allowed in the ateliers in France because everything was so original. No one was allowed to see it except the people who were going to buy it, which were the wealthy women in society, all those countesses and princesses, etc.
That's
So he would
that.
go to Europe, and then finally he said to the Carrie Donovan and the rest, "We got to have this girl up here at Vogue," and that's how I got to be at Vogue. I was
Oh my
modeling for
goodness.
Manning, the illustrator, and
That
that's
is
how I
so
met
good.
yeah, that's how I met Mrs. Vreeland.
Oh,
But
Mrs. Freeland, Diana Freeland.
Dinah Vreeland, but I was still in school, and let me tell you this story. I had to be in school every day, right? So I had just started to art and design this art school, and I get a letter from Mrs. Johnson, Eunice Johnson of Johnson Publications. The Ebony Fashion Fair was going to come through and look and select people. And somehow my mom had sent a picture to all the magazines, like she used to say, "Oh, you can model." And I said, "No, I can't. All I wanted to do was disappear in the back and sew something up or paint something."
Yeah.
But she said, "Oh, you look good." I thought I was too skinny, really. And so finally, Mrs. Johnson called me and my mom, "Please bring your daughter over. I want to see her." And she gave me a chance to be in her show.
Yes, I was just
Nice.
about to say, bring up because I'm from Chicago, and so Ebony Magazine and Johnson Publishing Company is big for us here, well, around the world. But
Yeah.
when I mentioned you on my Facebook page that I would be talking to you, a few people had commented about Miss Johnson, Amy Hillard and Lydia Johnson, who are from Chicago, mentioned their stories meeting you because you were working with Ebony Fashion Fair at the time. That's how Miss Johnson, I think she said she's kind of started your career.
Yeah, because I wasn't modeling at all. I was just going to school and going back and forth in the bus and subway and drawing and doing all that stuff. And so I got that little article in the Vogue, Vogue's own boutique. This is a young designer. So, but then my mom took that picture, sent it to Mrs. Johnson. She said, "Oh, we want you to model." Oh boy, I was only 15 years old, and all those girls that were up there going for the modeling were all set in their ways and gorgeous, glamorous, filled out. I thought, oh my God, I was scared to death. My mom was my chaperone. And
Yeah.
so we ended up on that Greyhound bus for 3 months, seeing America firsthand, north, south, east, west, and everything in between, in a
Yes.
bus with $1 million worth of couture clothes. And a
All
bus
right.
driver, huh?
Because Miss Johnson would you I saw you in an interview and she didn't she bought the stuff. They didn't give it to her.
Oh no, those were her clothes. She bought collections. She put Yves Saint Laurent on the map. She put everybody on the map. I mean, she was the biggest buyer, and she had the most trouble in the beginning because they didn't allow anyone of color to sit in the front row. But she was putting out the cash and putting everybody on their pedestals. You know,
Yeah.
Cardin, everybody, Valentino. She helped them all. They were all kind of babies when she, selected their clothes. And so, with all of those clothes, they were not just for naught. What happened with those clothes is they were auctioned off to get college funds for deserving African American young people who never had the money or ability to get these ins to these universities. And Mrs. Johnson had a lot of pull with that. So
Yeah.
I felt really good representing something that would help somebody, and I had a good time too, meeting all those stars and traveling around.
So after in the 70s, how hard was it for a black model at that day? After you left Ebony and you started on your way to try to become a model, because back then there were no black models on covers and or on runways. So how did you maneuver that?
Well, it was like the 60s and everybody was off in Vietnam and doing stuff. And then everybody, all the young boys were being sent off and everybody was like hippies and all that stuff and the black power and the this power and that. Finally, something broke where, they said, okay, so we're going to have some black girls, but not really.
Yeah,
Because if you wanted it, you have to go like Danielle Luna or, a few other girls go across the ocean like Josephine Baker and get the heck out of here. But
right.
I didn't leave right away because I couldn't, but I stayed and I found that I was in a position where, somehow I had to knock on a lot of doors and, there were not so many opportunities, because I'm
Yeah,
just sort of, what is that? They didn't know what to do with me. So I had a lot of experience on the runway because of the Ebony Fashion Fair. I learned how to walk the runway. And so when it came time for designers to use somebody to show their clothes, I had not only worked in a very contained atmosphere, like where you have to be very silent and carry a number and very
yeah,
severely in this old-fashioned way modeling. But I also had another thing coming up. I had music and dance in my soul. And that was the whole rhythm of the 70s. What came up is the rhythm of your soul and what you're trying to express from your being. And so then when we girls on 7th Avenue started working, they could see that we had an intention to make the crowd happy
yeah,
because we had bouteille and we could walk and we had certain attitude about I'm going to make it, not lazy walk, but with
yeah,
real intention. So we were out like the cheerleaders, carrying these flags of these designers of Stephen Burrows and Willie Smith and all of these wonderful young designers. And, we had Halston and Giorgio de San Angelo. We had a lot of amazing American designers who wanted to push this new feeling. And
yeah.
so we started walking to all of this wonderful music to James Brown and Aretha Franklin. And it just worked out, synchronicity. And then at that time, there were no representations in the journalistic world of Black models on covers. There were no Black magazines. I was in the first edition of Essence magazine, and that was so thrilling. I mean,
That
there was
is great.
Susan and a whole bunch of wonderful girls, Iona and Susan, and these girls had so much faith. I mean, we prayed before a booking. I mean, we prayed before and we ate vegetarian before anybody else was even thinking
Right.
about it. And we were just like, oh boy, we were in it to be completely absorbed and 100% present. And I think that's why suddenly there became this Essence magazine and then girls started pulling their way in, like Pat Evans and other girls, just very particular, very strong looking Black women who had the beauty, the color, the blossoming energy, of new emancipation. Like we even had our own cigarettes and, stuff like that. It was quite interesting to see
Oh my
this.
God, I could just imagine that day. And then
That's,
another key point in your career, which is one of the stories that I love, was the Battle of Versailles, where 5 American designers who were new at the time, even though right now they're legends, and 5 French designers
yes.
battled it out in Paris. And the story is it was 30, maybe 36 models, but it was 10 Black models, including yourself and Beth
Yeah.
Ann Hardison and all these other great models. How
Yeah.
was the Battle of Versailles? Stephen Burrows was the Black designer that was a part of the American team. I love this story. How was that experience for you?
Well, the girls that were doing the 7th Avenue modeling had not been to Europe yet, but I had been living in Europe for like 3 years.
Oh,
So I was called to come back, and I was so happy because we had to learn dance numbers, and all us girls wanted to be on stage or be stars or be something. So we were called to rehearsals with Liza Minnelli and Kay Thompson, and all the designers had to pick the models. And we were lucky girls because those big time models who were getting paid a lot did not want to do this job because they were
oh,
not paying. And so we girls wanted just to go back to Paris and get this opportunity to be at Versailles. So we did our rehearsals with Liza Minnelli, and Halston was there, and Bill Blass, and Anne Klein, the only woman designer. And then we had Stephen Burrows, the youngest Black designer, who was like so Oh my God, people loved him so much. And we had Joe Euler, the illustrator. We had so many wonderful American proud people who wanted to go back and get what they were owed, because we just went over there and saved the war, saved people from the war. We were like, here we come, the Americans. And pop art was in, and Andy Warhol was in, which me and Donna and Antonio started that whole American rush in 1970, 1969. But then came 1973.
Donna who?
Sorry?
Donna?
Donna Jordan. She's my other half, I call her. Well, we're like salt and pepper. But anyway, and we got over there, 1973. There was Billy Blair and Nama Jean Darden and a whole bunch of wonderful girls. And, Karen Bjornson, it was like we were a bouquet of colors, our American team, but we had all the black girls. And there was only one girl who was black in Europe, and she was a crazy horse model, and she was Yves Saint Laurent's only black model at the time. So after we were there, and all that royalty was in the room, and Grace Kelly and Josephine Baker, and Nureyev was there. I stepped in his toe before he went out. I think he was scared of me. But anyway, he was hopping, but he did okay anyway. Stilettos are a killer, man. But I'm just telling you, it was the most wild thing to be backstage at Versailles, but the party was exquisite. Duchess of Windsor was there. I was chickle-chackle talking to the Duchess of Windsor, just elbowing, And they had those little golden chairs, and you looked up at the ceiling, and the cherubs were dancing. The paintings on the ceiling were dancing. And candles were flickering, and everybody was dressed in real jewelry. And the crowns, they had their tiaras on. And it was so much fun. I swear, everybody was dressed in paillettes and sequins and silk. And I was walking down the hall with the tallest designer, Givenchy. I mean, he looks like a basketball player. I felt so tiny next to him. And Stephen dressed us girls with all these feathers, like sort of like very abstract bone feathers. And he put a train dress on me that was so long. The train went to the back of the stage. It was like a real train, and I had to whip it around.
Oh my God, that is an incredible time. I mean, the Battle of Versailles, people need to really research that. There's been books on it and movies and docs. So that was a great time. You should feel lucky that just blessed to be a part of that. And Stephen Burrows, you were his muse for a while. I love Stephen Burrows. You were his
I'm
muse.
wearing Stephen now. It never goes out of style. See, this is
what season was that? What collection?
This is 20 years ago.
Oh my God.
Yeah, but his things never go out of style, and they're so lightweight, and you can just bundle them up and put them in your suitcase and see you later. Not right now. I have an American passport, but when I get it back together, those clothes are going back in the bag. And
I love that.
Yeah, he makes very lightweight jersey clothes, and the cuts are all in the bias, and the wonderful fabrics that he designs and the colors he chooses is so vibrant. And he's so inspiring to all those designers in Europe. So when we got to Versailles, Yves Saint Laurent was in love with him. Cardin was in love with him. Everybody. Versace loved him. Everybody, many of them copied some of his clothes, by the way. Sure. That metal dress that everybody got so famous for, that was Stephen's dress. Yes. I wore it to the opera one time in London, and before you knew it, bam, somebody had copied it. I don't know what. People crazy. But
because the Battle of Versailles was to make it kind of helped American designers become more credible, because I guess the French designers were thought of as more credible than American.
Well, the only thing, it's just an old world, lots of rhetoric about fashion. Everything is plumes and feathers and that whole royal thing. But we got royalty too. It comes from the street. Right. It's called dirt. Let us see the dirt and water it. That's what we say here.
Exactly. Now, you work with all the designers, and I just want to know some of your memorable moments with them. We talked about Mr. Burrows, Yves Saint Laurent. How was working with Yves Saint Laurent?
Oh my gosh, he's just so wonderful. Okay, the first time I met him, I was trying to get in his show with Antonio Lopez, and we were all skinny and young, and he wasn't all that famous then. But I had already worn his clothes in 1965. And so by the time I got to Paris, it was 1970 exactly, I remember. And so what happened is Antonio and I went in to try to sneak into a show, but we were walking very slowly towards the place where it was having the show. Suddenly we see this Volkswagen Beetle pull up. And out of it climbs out this tall, skinny guy with big glasses, and it was Eve. Oh God, we almost had a fit. So I went to the first show of Yves Saint Laurent, and I was standing in the audience watching the one black girl that he had from the Crazy Horse. That's why we went, because we wanted to see her to prove that it really did happen, that he had a black girl in the show.
Okay.
So we went there, and then somehow I met him through Antonio Lopez. And before you knew it, I was off to London with Yves Saint Laurent to do a show at the Royal Hall with the Princess Margaret. And I made friends with Princess Margaret when she was alive because of Yves Saint Laurent. And Yves Saint Laurent, oh boy, he was so cute. He was so cute and very quiet, very quiet. But the wonderful thing, he's always kiss you on both cheeks before you go out. And he was so religious though, because he always lit a candle next to Mother Mary backstage before the show. So he had this like little altar that he had going all the time. So I think really, deep down inside, and sometimes, oh my God, he saved my life one time. I was just sort of like hanging out like a hippie in Paris, like boom, suddenly I just went too supernatural without any fashion attachments. Right. And he saw me walking down the street from Fernando Sanchez, this other designer's house, and they were on the balcony and they saw me and they said, Pat, what are you doing down there? Come up here immediately, because my hair was a mess and I was a mess. So I was just seeding out for a minute, nothing wrong. So I went up and we spent the whole afternoon on the couch talking about, don't give up modeling. You're only 21. And so they brought me back into the fashion and they were like pampering me. So Eve kind of said, okay, now you're going to come over and do all the fittings with me now. Keep me out of trouble. Fashion can save your life.
You did a lot of work with Halston. You did a lot of work with Halston. How was working with Halston?
Oh, he is another handsome one too. Oh my God. I just like looking at him. No, he was so gorgeous. So gorgeous. I met him in 1967, but actually he told me after we had just met, Stephen actually introduced me to Halston at a party, because Stephen and I went to a party, a fashion party, and Halston walked in and Stephen said, oh, you have to work with him. So Halston came over and sat down next to me and we talked, and he said, I know who you are. And I said, oh, really? And I was not anything. I mean, I did one show with Stephen, and I was like, that was the big top of the world right there. And I said, well, maybe I am. He said, I saw you in the Ebony fashion fair in 1966. Halston used to design hats, and Mrs. Johnson bought his hats for the show. So I had already worn his hats in 1965. So doing his first show, I was able to meet wonderful girls like Naomi Sims, the #1 top Vogue model at the time, and Angelica Houston came to model, and there was Elsa Peretti, the jewelry designer, and they were all models, and so I got to hang out with them. But we all did our own makeup, and we were all very secretive about it. So if you were in the makeup mirror doing your makeup, never look at the other girl, because she'll give you a dirty look because you're trying to copy her look. No, that's not happening. These days, take one brush and run it across everybody so they all look alike. I don't know.
Right. And how about Karl Lagerfeld?
Oh my God. So Karl, he's so European. He grew up in a castle and all that. And so he's half Swedish and German. So the thing is, Antonio Lopez used to do all of these illustrations for him when Karl was just starting over at Chloe. Yeah. And he was like Karl used to have this little squeaky atelier up in the building, a little rotten building. We used to go up there. And Antonio would say, now we're going to go meet Karl. But at the time when I first arrived, I went to stay with Antonio, and Antonio was staying in one of Karl Lagerfeld's tiny little apartments. So Antonio, me, Donna Jordan, and Juan, his assistant, used to sleep in this little apartment, like in sleeping bags on the floor. And Karl gave it to us. But it was an exquisite apartment, all decorated in Art Deco with no kitchen. But anyway, so we were living there at Karl's. And finally, I got to go meet Karl one night. And it was like, okay, we're going to go over to Karl's for dinner. We were starving. But anyway, we went over to Karl's. And he had this beautiful house, like this building, university. And it was like you walked in and it was like a castle, but on the outside it was just that white stone and a double staircase going up to the
Oh, wow.
French doors. And then you go into his apartment and you open the door, it's all dark with mirrors with Art Deco. You've gone back to a 1920s horse photograph,
Oh, my.
which meant that we did a lot of horse photographs in his apartment, by the way. So I met Carl in his apartment, and the first thing he did was throw me this outfit. He says, "Here, you're going to wear this tonight, my dear." And it was like a blue chiffon, million layers of chiffon pleated in peacock blue. And I put it on, and it was sheer. Thank God I had my G string. I put it on, and it was sheer, and I opened my arms up like this, and I became like an angel. And he said, "Now we're going to dinner." And we went to dinner at La Capole, and somehow this outfit got a lot of attention. Of course, you know, it was sheer. Anyway, so I walked into La Capole, and I had my arms down so nobody could see through this outfit, like a lady, you know, I was taught to be like. But suddenly it got caught in a nail in the back because it had this long train, and I was walking and suddenly came off, and I put my arms up like that. So I was nude in the front, these angel wings, you know, and the whole restaurant stood up and started applauding. And what an entrance an outfit can do for you.
Oh my God, that is such an incredible story. You had so been able to party and work with so many people back in the 70s, was partying at Studio 54, like Andy Warhol and Andre Leon Talley. I talked to Andre last month on here. And so many. How was that, Mick Jagger, and how was partying with those in the 70s?
Well, the thing is, that's all the people you had around you, because you never got a chance to go out and mingle with people like, you know, normally how you would do, like walk through the park, because you were working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And those are the only people you see is those people, the movie stars and the designers. And that's your whole world. I mean, sometimes you think, oh, I just want to be normal. But you realize if you get out of that world, it's nothing like that. That world is really amazing. You know, it's just like talented people all over the place. And then when they party, they've worked so hard. It used to be a 5-day work week, Monday through Friday afternoon. Then you jump in the limo or you take the small water plane out to Fire Island, and the world disappears, and it's just dance, dance, dance. And everybody dresses up 3 or 4 times a day, and they redecorate their houses once a week just for the party.
Yeah. It's such a fun time.
Absolutely.
And even though all that time was fun, you did so much for the modeling industry. What do you think about today's industry, the fashion industry today, with Black models, like where we are now, and what do you think we could do to make it better?
Oh my God. So, you know, we just have to hold on now, because you cannot give up believing in your dreams, okay? So, you know, sometimes I have some girls call me, or sometimes somebody will say, well, what can I do to model? I said, well, right now the industry is having a really hard time because we don't know where it's going to go next. But hold on for a minute. You know, just stay healthy and keep your dreams intact. And then somehow things will bounce back, you know, because there's a lot of work that I cannot do now because I can't travel, restrictions, and also the COVID, the virus thing. So a lot of people are not working. And so what I say about diversity is, wow, it's delicious. I mean, look what's happening. It just blossomed out. It's like we got every possible type of girl you can want to look at. We have all sizes, you know, all mannerisms of expression. I mean, this is just bountiful. So if you do want to do fashion, you have to develop your style yourself and see how you can develop yourself. If you can sew, make some clothes. If you can do makeup, do your makeup. Try to start something on a blog. Try to start something on a, you know, Instagram or something, so people will see you. Maybe they'll be interested in collaborating or something. You know, we're doing everything like this high-techy, you know, and the computers and stuff, but that's the way it is now. So with agents and things, it's really tough right now. And I hate to say that, you know, it's really tough for everybody. But okay, so what? You can still have style, you know, what the heck? You know,
your daughter is a model now. Your daughter has been modeling for a while. How is she doing?
Oh my God. I'm so proud of her. You know, she was the star of the Folies Bergère, Jean-Paul Gaultier, and
Oh,
she played the part of Josephine Baker.
oh, very nice. That's
And
one
when
of
she came
your
out on stage in
idols.
those bananas, huh?
That's one of your idols.
Yeah, that kind of runs in our family because my great aunt was Josephine Baker's Sunday school teacher.
Oh,
And
wow.
she's the one who taught her to play the piano and told her, you got to get out of town and go with that shuffle along. And so
Wow.
it's kind of been like a myth in our family. My mom used to, dress up as Josephine. I used to dress up as Josephine. It's just a dance, and it kind of runs through us that this woman liberated herself from all oppression of being in the wrong place. And she took herself out of it. And it was just, she had a good fortune and she had very strong things that she had to, choose to do in her life, you
Yeah.
know and we admire courage in our family. And so
Yeah.
Anna got to play the part of Josephine, and I was so proud. And they wrote that part into the show for her specifically because of that, our family being so involved with
Nice.
Josephine Baker.
Yeah, as we wrap up, I know you're known for a particular walk. What is your walk, your style, your walk style?
Oh my God, don't talk about walking, honey. I'm just so glad. I was in a wheelchair for a year and I had
Oh,
to learn to walk again. And so
okay.
once I got up on my feet, I said, God, I'm going to do something with this. I was 17 when I almost became a cripple.
Mhm.
And I didn't have an operation, but I learned to walk. And once I learned to walk, I said, nothing's going to stop me. I'm just going to keep going. And when you're in that runway and that heartbeat of that audience is waiting for something to happen, bam, something turned on the light. I don't know. I just can't stop. I'm so happy. I just want everybody to know, get dressed up and get out the door, and go live your life. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yes, yes. So, during quarantine, what have you been doing? You're in your studio at your home. You've been painting, or what have you been doing?
Well, what I do is I get up and I paint because, I love painting. I've always loved painting. And I'm making a collection of paintings now about my healing journey. So I have all the things I've been going through. But the beauty of it is that, when you paint or you express yourself in any way, you get to listen very well to the things that mean something to you. And I love color, and my mother was a painter, so it's sort of like it was given to me to continue to do. So I'm
Yeah.
honoring the gifts that were given to me, and I'm trying to develop them. I'm also studying Sanskrit at the moment, so
Yeah.
so I can chant better.
Yes, well, thank you so much. I appreciate you. I really appreciate you coming out and supporting me at the Emerge show. That was 2014, and to get the award, and Mr. Burroughs. I want to thank Paul, your husband. Thank him for me, please.
I will. I
Yes,
will. I
the book.
appreciate you.
I love this book. People, I know this was out a couple years ago, but this is really good. It's so many great stories of 70s and 80s. Like, just it's really good. So people should get that book. I really appreciate you and taking out the time for me.
Okay, you did it. You just made my day too, because it's just nice that people are still interested in expressing themselves and helping others to find that little bit of light inside. That makes
Yeah.
you get up.
And I just want to know, for me and the people who are watching, that we appreciate you. We just want to know that you are appreciated within the industry. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay.